The morning sky was calm, painted in soft shades of orange and blue, giving the small border town a peaceful look. Birds flew over the quiet streets, and for a moment, everything felt normal. But not for Armin. He stood outside his old house, staring at the long road ahead, feeling a strange heaviness in his chest. Something was wrong. He could not explain it, but he felt it. Armin was a simple man, disciplined, quiet, and deeply loyal to his country. He worked as a junior officer in a remote military camp, far from big cities and their noise. Life here was slow, almost silent. People in the area trusted the soldiers. Children waved at them every morning. Elderly men brought them tea in metal cups. Families slept peacefully, believing nothing bad could ever happen. But peace is fragile. Inside the camp, the morning routine continued as usual. Soldiers polished their boots, cleaned their weapons, and chatted casually about the weather. Armin's best friend, Sajith, walked toward him with 2 cups of hot tea. "You look worried," Sajith said gently. Armin forced a small smile. "Just a strange feeling. Like something big is coming." Sajith laughed. "Bro, you always think too much. Nothing ever happens here." But Armin couldn't shake the feeling. At exactly 8:17 a.m., a loud alarm suddenly screamed through the camp. The sharp sound cut through the calm morning like a knife. Soldiers froze. The teacup slipped from Sajith's hand and shattered on the ground. A voice came through the loudspeaker. "All units prepare. This is not a drill." The words hit everyone like a punch. Armin grabbed his helmet and ran toward the command tent. Inside, officers were crowded around a large digital map. Enemy movements had been detected across the border. It looked like a small group at first, but the numbers kept increasing. The commander's face was pale. "They're preparing to attack," he whispered. Armin felt his heartbeat quicken. Sajith stood beside him, confused and scared. This can't be real." "We weren't warned," Sajith said. "No one was prepared. No backup, no extra supplies, no warning. Just a small camp facing a sudden storm." The commander gave orders quickly. "Positions. Now. Protect the civilians at all costs." Chaos began immediately. Soldiers ran to their posts. Radios buzzed with mixed voices. The ground vibrated slightly like something big was approaching. Armin rushed toward the watchtower. From the top, he could see smoke rising from the far side of the border. Dozens of vehicles were lining up, armored trucks, mounted weapons, and enemy soldiers flooding the area like an unstoppable wave. It was not a small attack. It was a full invasion. Armin's stomach dropped. He grabbed the radio. "Sir, this is bigger than we thought. They're coming fast." Before the commander could respond, a sudden explosion shook the ground. A fireball rose into the sky, turning the morning light into darkness. The first attack had begun. People in the village woke up screaming. Mothers grabbed their children and ran out of their homes. Shops opened hurriedly only for people to rush out with fear in their eyes. The peaceful town turned into a scene of terror within seconds. Armin climbed down and ran toward the main gate. He spotted a young woman crying beside a collapsed wall, trying to pull out her elderly father. Without thinking, Armin rushed to her. "Move back. I'll help," he shouted. He pushed aside the broken pieces of the wall and helped the old man stand. The woman looked at him with trembling eyes. Thank you, soldier," she whispered. Armin nodded. "Get inside the camp. It's safer." But it wasn't safe anywhere anymore. Sajith ran toward him, panting. "Bro. They attacked the north checkpoint. We're losing men." Armin's heart tightened. He didn't want war. He didn't want people to die. But the war had come anyway, and now he had no choice but to fight. The sky grew darker as smoke spread across the town. Enemy bullets whizzed through the air. Soldiers shouted commands. The ground shook again as another explosion hit the corner of the camp. Armin and Sajid took position beside a row of sandbags. They fired at the approaching enemy, trying to hold the line. "Just keep breathing," Armin shouted. "I am barely," Sajid replied. Their hands shook, their faces covered in dust. But they didn't stop. The enemy kept advancing. Inside the camp, the commander sent an emergency message for help. But the nearest reinforcements were hours away. They were alone. Armin felt a bullet hit the ground near his feet. He ducked and looked at Sajid. "We can't hold them for long," Sajid said, fear in his voice. "We have to," Armin replied. "If we fall, the town falls." Then, through the thick smoke, Armin saw something shocking. A large enemy vehicle aiming a heavy weapon directly at the camp. His heart froze. "Everyone down!" Armin screamed. A massive blast followed. The world turned white. And the unexpected war had only just begun. Smoke filled the air. The taste of dust and gunpowder burned in Armin's throat. He coughed, wiping his face with a sleeve smeared in blood and dirt. Around him, soldiers were shouting, running, firing. Chaos had become the only language in the camp. Sajid lay on the ground beside him, his uniform torn, a gash on his arm. "Armin, what do we do now?" he shouted, fear breaking his usual calm tone. Armin's eyes scanned the battlefield. Enemy soldiers were moving in waves, fast and organized. Explosions from grenades and artillery shook the ground like earthquakes. Every second felt like a lifetime. He gritted his teeth. "We hold them. We can't let them take the town." The commander appeared suddenly, shouting orders. "To the northern barricade. Stop the tanks at all costs." His face was grim, the weight of responsibility heavy in his tired eyes. Armin and Sajid sprinted toward the northern barricade, dodging falling debris and gunfire. Civilians had been moved behind reinforced walls, but screams still pierced the air. Some ran barefoot over shattered glass, clutching children tightly. The world outside the camp was no longer a town, it had become a battlefield. At the barricade, Armin jumped into position, picking up a heavy machine gun. His hands shook, but he forced himself to focus. Enemy soldiers were climbing over the first fence, shouting and firing wildly. He took aim and fired, each shot pushing back the wave, though only for a moment. "Armin!" "The tank's moving toward the east wall," Sajid yelled. Armin glanced up. The armored vehicle glinted under the morning sun, its cannon pointed directly at the camp's eastern gate. Civilians were trapped there, their escape route cut off. He felt his chest tighten. "We need a plan, fast," he muttered to himself. Nearby, a young lieutenant ran up. "Sir, if we can't stop that tank, the camp will fall in minutes." Armin's mind raced. There was no time for hesitation. He remembered the old storage room behind the barracks, a place with heavy explosives used for training purposes. If they could lure the tank near it, maybe, just maybe. "We can use the storage room," Armin shouted. "Set it as a trap. We need volunteers." Sajid raised his hand immediately. "Count me in. We'll do it together." Armin nodded. "Okay. Everyone else, cover us." The plan was dangerous, almost impossible. But fear wasn't an option. The enemy didn't wait for bravery, only for mistakes. Armin and Sajid ran through the narrow paths between sandbags and fallen walls, dragging themselves close to the storage room. The explosions from the initial attack had left the building unstable. They could hear enemy boots approaching, shouting and laughing like predators sensing weak prey. Inside the storage room, Armin quickly checked the explosives. He had studied this area before for training drills, but he had never imagined it would be used in real war. His hands moved fast, connecting wires and adjusting timers. Sajith watched the entrance nervously, keeping his rifle ready. Suddenly, the door rattled. Enemy soldiers had found them. "Armin, they're here!" Sajith shouted. Armin's mind raced. There was no turning back. He grabbed his radio. "All units, get ready. When I blow this, cover your ears and stay back." He glanced at Sajith. "Are you ready?" Sajith swallowed hard but nodded. "Let's do it." The first enemy soldier stepped inside. Before he could react, Armin pressed the detonator. The explosion ripped through the storage room. Flames shot high into the sky, the deafening sound shaking every building nearby. Enemy soldiers were thrown back, screaming. Dust and smoke covered the area. The tank, parked dangerously close, rocked from the force and toppled over the side. For a few seconds, silence fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Armin and Sajith stood in the smoke, coughing, their faces blackened with soot. They had done it. The first strike had slowed the enemy. But the victory was short-lived. Far across the field, Armin saw dozens more vehicles moving fast toward the camp. Reinforcements from the enemy were larger, stronger, and better armed. "Armin, it's not over," Sajith said quietly, fear in his voice. Armin's jaw tightened. He knew Sajith was right. The first strike had bought them time, but the war was just beginning. Civilians were still in danger, soldiers were exhausted, and the enemy wasn't stopping. He looked around at the faces of the men fighting beside him. Some were young, barely 20, shaking with fear but still holding their ground. Others were older, with scars from past battles, silently praying they would live to see their families again. Armin felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He couldn't afford to panic, couldn't afford to think about death. Only the next move mattered. Suddenly, a flare shot into the sky, red and bright. A signal. Reinforcements from the enemy were approaching faster than anyone expected. Armin gritted his teeth. "Get ready," he shouted. "This is the real fight. The unexpected war has only just begun." The sound of drums of war, gunfire, engines, and explosions grew louder. Smoke filled the horizon. And through the chaos, Armin's resolve hardened. He would not let this town fall. He would fight. And he would survive. The sun had barely risen, but the camp was already a battlefield. Smoke still hung in the air from the previous explosion. Soldiers ran between barricades, shouting orders, firing at shadows, and trying to keep the enemy at bay. The taste of dust and fear was thick in Armin's mouth. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. And yet, he couldn't stop moving. Sajith ran toward him, bleeding from his arm but still standing. "Armin, the enemy, they have someone inside the camp," he said, voice trembling. Armin froze. "What? How is that possible?" Sajith shook his head. "I don't know. But they opened the main gate from inside. We were lucky the barricade held." Armin's stomach tightened. Someone had betrayed them. Someone he trusted. He scanned the soldiers around him. Everyone was focused on the fighting, unaware that danger lurked in the shadows. Every face seemed the same, yet now every shadow seemed suspicious. The commander approached, pale and grim. "We've confirmed it. One of our own opened the gate. We don't know who, but if we don't find them soon, the town falls tonight." Armin felt a cold sweat run down his back. Betrayal inside their own ranks meant the enemy didn't just attack, they knew their every move. He ran toward the communication tent. Maybe the security footage could help. Maybe they could find the traitor. Inside, the screens flickered with static, broken wires sparking. Armin knelt, checking each feed. And then he saw it, a shadow slipping past the northern checkpoint, a soldier carrying keys to the gate, moving quickly toward the town. Armin's heart skipped a beat. "It's him, it has to be him," he muttered. Sajid peered over his shoulder. "Who?" Armin swallowed hard. "Captain Zahir. He's been helping the enemy." Sajid's eyes widened. "Zahir? But he's one of the bravest officers. How could he?" "Fear can make people weak, or greedy," Armin said, his voice tight. "We need to stop him before it's too late." They ran out, dodging debris and bullets, following the path Zahir had taken. The enemy's attacks grew fiercer, as if they knew the camp's secrets. Every step was dangerous. Armin's mind raced. How long had Zahir been planning this? How many lives were at risk because of one man's betrayal? Then, as they approached the old armory, they saw him. Captain Zahir, calm and composed, handing ammunition to enemy soldiers hiding in the trees. Armin's blood boiled. "Zahir," he shouted. The captain turned slowly, his face cold, almost smug. "Ah. Armin. I was wondering when you'd notice. You're a traitor. How could you?" Armin's voice cracked with anger. Zahir smiled faintly. "It's simple. Power, survival, the enemy promised me more than this small town ever could." Sajid stepped forward, trembling. "You're risking innocent lives." Zahir shrugged. "Sacrifices are part of war. Don't you understand? Only the strong survive." Armin gritted his teeth. "Not if I stop you first." The first bullets rang out. Zahir fired, but Armin and Sajid dug behind cover. The armory shook as more explosions erupted nearby. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to see. Armin knew they had little time. "Follow me," Armin shouted. He had an idea. If they could trap Zahir inside the armory with a controlled explosion, it would end the betrayal and stop the enemy from advancing further. Sajid nodded. "I trust you." They sneaked closer, avoiding Zahir's fire, hearts pounding. Every second felt like minutes. The air smelled of gunpowder and fear. And then, suddenly, a hand grabbed Armin's shoulder from behind. He spun around. It was one of Zahir's men. A gun pressed against his chest. "Don't move," the soldier hissed. Armin's mind raced. He couldn't fight both at once. Sajid took a deep breath and tackled the soldier. They struggled on the ground, dust and sweat mixing with blood. Armin seized the moment, ran into the armory, and quickly rigged the explosives, heart pounding like a drum. He pressed the detonator button, counting down in his head. 3, 2, 1. Boom. The explosion shook the ground violently. Smoke, fire, and debris filled the air. Armin coughed, shielding his eyes. When the dust cleared, Zahir's figure was nowhere to be seen. Whether he had escaped or not, Armin didn't know. The enemy attack had slowed, but the betrayal left a bitter taste. Sajid ran to him, panting. "Did we stop him?" Armin shook his head. "I don't know. But we survived the first strike. That's all that matters for now." He looked over the camp. Soldiers were regrouping. Civilians were being moved to safer zones. But Armin knew deep down the battle was far from over. There were more secrets, more enemies, and the unexpected war had only grown deadlier. And somewhere, Zahir was out there, waiting. The sky had turned gray with smoke. Flames from burning buildings painted the horizon red. The once quiet town was now unrecognizable, a battlefield of fire, fear, and despair. Soldiers ran from one barricade to another, shouting, firing, and trying to survive. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to disaster. Armin stood atop the main wall, his uniform torn, face streaked with dust and blood. His eyes scanned the chaos. Civilians were hiding behind collapsed walls, children crying in fear. Soldiers were wounded, their faces pale, yet they fought with a desperate determination. "This is madness," Sajith muttered, panting. He had a bandage wrapped around his arm, but the blood kept seeping through. Armin didn't answer. His mind was focused on the enemy advancing in waves. The betrayal of Zahir still haunted him. If their own men could turn against them, who could they trust? But there was no time to think, only to act. "Armin! East Gate under heavy attack," shouted a young corporal. Armin's heart sank. If the enemy breached the East Gate, the town would fall. Civilians trapped in the streets would have nowhere to run. "Grab your weapons. Cover the gate," Armin yelled. Soldiers scrambled into position, their hands shaking but their will unbroken. Bullets flew past Armin's head, sparks hitting the wall around him. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke filled the air, burning his eyes and throat. But he didn't stop. He fired at the advancing soldiers, each shot buying a few precious seconds. Suddenly, a massive enemy vehicle rumbled toward the barricade, guns mounted on top, ready to destroy everything. Armin's stomach tightened. This was worse than anything he had faced before. "Cover me," he shouted to Sajith. He sprinted toward the supply shed, grabbed a heavy grenade, and ran back to the edge of the wall. Timing was everything. He threw the grenade at the vehicle. Boom! Fire and metal exploded in the air. The vehicle tipped sideways, sparks flying everywhere. The enemy soldiers hesitated, giving the camp a brief moment of relief. But the relief was short-lived. From behind the destroyed vehicle, Zahir appeared. Armin's blood boiled. "Still fighting, Armin?" Zahir called, smirking, his rifle aimed at civilians taking cover. "You're done, Zahir," Armin shouted. He fired at him, but Zahir ducked behind a wall and disappeared. Sajith grabbed Armin's shoulder. "He's leading them. He knows our every move." Armin's mind raced. Zahir was smart, dangerous, and ruthless. But there was something else. The longer he survived, the more time civilians had. The longer they held the line, the more chances they had to fight back. "Keep fighting. Protect the civilians," Armin yelled. Soldiers and civilians alike rallied. Women and elderly men helped move supplies, carrying water and first aid to the wounded. Children huddled together, hiding under walls, listening to the sound of bullets and explosions. Fear was everywhere, but so was courage. Armin spotted a group of enemy soldiers climbing the north wall. Without hesitation, he sprinted, dodging bullets and debris. Sajith followed closely, firing at anyone in their path. They reached the wall just as the enemies tried to break through. Armin grabbed one by the collar, pulling him down. Sajith kicked another back over the edge. The fight was brutal, messy, and exhausting. Every second was a battle between survival and defeat. Then, from the command post, a flare shot into the sky. Reinforcements were arriving. Soldiers cheered, a small hope rising amid the chaos. But Armin didn't allow himself to relax. Zahir was still out there, and the enemy was still attacking fiercely. He turned to Sajith. "We have to find him. Before this ends, we need to stop him." Sajith nodded, eyes wide with exhaustion. "I'm with you, brother. Let's finish this." As they ran toward the burning village center, the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder, smoke, and fear. Explosions ripped through the streets, throwing debris everywhere. Civilians screamed and ran. Soldiers shouted orders and fired relentlessly. And then, in the heart of the chaos, Armin saw him, Zahir, standing tall amid the fire, rallying enemy soldiers, pointing them like a commander. Rage surged through Armin. He clenched his fists, determination burning brighter than fear. This was the moment. The heart of the battle. The point where courage and desperation collided. Armin whispered to Sajith, "We end this, now." Together, they charged, weaving through debris, dodging bullets, and racing toward the man who had betrayed everything they fought for. The unexpected war had reached its most dangerous point. Every step, every heartbeat, every shot counted. And Armin knew one thing: if they failed here, the town, the civilians, and their lives would be lost forever. The air was thick with smoke and dust. The town that had once been peaceful now looked like a battlefield from a nightmare. Flames rose from broken buildings, and the cries of the injured and frightened echoed through the streets. Yet, in the middle of chaos, Armin and Sajid pushed forward, determined to end this war once and for all. Ahead, near the collapsed town hall, Zahir stood tall, directing enemy soldiers with a cold, calculated precision. His face was grim, his eyes sharp, the betrayal in his actions a weight on everyone's soul. Armin's fists clenched. This man had caused so much death and fear, but now, Armin would confront him. "We end this, Sajid," Armin said, his voice low but firm. Sajid nodded. No turning back now. They ran across the rubble-strewn street, bullets flying past them. Each step was dangerous, but every second wasted could cost lives. Civilians peeked from behind walls, their faces pale with fear, yet they watched, silently praying for the soldiers' success. As they approached Zahir, the traitor raised his rifle. "You should have stayed loyal, Armin," he sneered. "I stayed loyal, to my people," Armin shouted, raising his own weapon. The first shot rang out. Chaos exploded around them. Enemy soldiers fired from behind debris, but Armin and Sajid moved like shadows, dodging, weaving, and returning fire with precise determination. Every bullet they fired saved lives. Every step brought them closer to Zahir. Suddenly, Zahir's men lunged forward in a coordinated strike. Sajid blocked one with his rifle and tackled another to the ground. Armin dove to the side as bullets shattered the wall behind him. Dust and sparks filled the air, making it hard to see. Then Armin noticed something: Zahir's focus was split. He had underestimated their determination. The traitor's confidence wavered for just a moment. That was all Armin needed. With a swift, calculated move, Armin fired a precise shot that disarmed Zahir. The rifle fell from his hands. Zahir stumbled back, rage and shock on his face. "It's over, Zahir," Armin yelled. But the traitor wasn't finished. He lunged toward Armin, fists swinging. Sajid grabbed him from behind, and the three of them struggled fiercely. Dust and sweat covered their faces. Finally, Armin delivered a strong push, sending Zahir crashing into a pile of rubble. The man groaned, beaten and defeated. Enemy soldiers, seeing their leader fall, began retreating in confusion. The tide of the battle shifted instantly. Armin and Sajid rallied the remaining soldiers, pushing the attackers back. One by one, the enemy retreated beyond the town's edge, leaving behind their weapons and vehicles. Silence fell. The air still smelled of smoke and gunpowder, but the fighting had stopped. Civilians slowly came out of hiding, their faces filled with relief and disbelief. Children ran to the soldiers, hugging them. Mothers wept openly, thanking Armin and Sajid. Armin sank to his knees, exhausted, looking around at the destroyed town. "It's finally over," he whispered, though the devastation still weighed heavily on him. Sajid sat beside him, breathing hard. "We did it, we really did it." But Armin knew the victory came at a cost. Soldiers were wounded. Buildings were destroyed. Lives had been lost. Yet, in this moment, there was hope. The town had survived, and the enemy was gone. From the rubble, a small voice called out. It was a child, no older than 7, holding a broken toy. "Thank you," she said softly. "You saved us." Armin smiled, feeling the weight lift from his chest just a little. "Stay safe," he whispered back. Later, the commander approached Armin and Sajid. His uniform was torn, his face pale, but his eyes shone with pride. You too, you turned the tide. You saved this town. Your courage and loyalty are beyond words. Armin shook his head. We didn't do it alone. Every soldier, every civilian who helped, they all played a part. The commander nodded. Still, your leadership and bravery were the spark we needed. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Armin walked through the streets with Sajith. The town was damaged, but life had survived. People were emerging from hiding, picking up what they could, and helping one another rebuild. The destruction would heal, and hope would return. Armin paused and looked at Sajith. We faced betrayal, fire, and death, but we made it. Somehow, we made it. Sajith placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. And we will keep protecting them, no matter what comes next. Armin took a deep breath, watching children play among the rubble, mothers comforting their families, and soldiers standing guard. The unexpected war had tested them all, but it had also shown the strength of courage, loyalty, and unity. In that moment, Armin realized something important: wars may come, betrayals may happen, but hope, bravery, and love could survive even in the darkest times. The town had been scarred, but its heart was alive. And so was the spirit of its people. Armin looked to the horizon, where the first stars began to shine. The night was quiet now, but he knew one thing: they had won, and the future was still theirs to protect. The unexpected war was over. But the courage it sparked would last forever.